This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Richard Adler from the 1960s band The Tangerine Puppets. Band members also included the notable Tommy Ramone and Johnny Ramone and Robert Rowland. The Tangerine Puppets was the band that was before the Ramones. Richard has had an amazing career since then, which included concert promotion, rock photographer, talent agent, playwright, and now author. His book, My Rock and Roll Fantasy, which will be released on August 15th by RMA Press. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is really a lot of fun. I met you last year. We were at a Ramones celebration, and
Yes, you were.
yeah, we were with Mickey Lee and a lot of our common friends, and Monty Melnick, of course.
Yes.
But it's interesting because after that event, I had the opportunity to, meet you and Robert, but also have you on my show. So if the audience hasn't heard that, I want to direct them to go back and listen to that interview because it was so interesting to hear the two of you go back and remember your time in the Tangerine Puppets, which was really incredible. But now I have you all to myself, so I can't wait to hear just about your life and about how you all started. I was able to get a little preview of your book, and your life has just been really incredible. I have to say that a lot of things are either, like they say, kismet, or they're meant to be, or hitting a strike of luck or something. But some of your stories and some of the famous people that entered your path is really what ignites the whole story for me. So we're going to have to start out when you're like preteen or something. What do you think?
I think we could skip preteen and go right to teen.
All right, good. So your teenage years, when you guys got together, Tommy and Johnny and Robert. So how did you form the band? I don't think they were originally the Tangerine Puppets, right?
No, we were originally the Tiger Five. Tommy lived in my apartment building in Forest Hills, and I was taking guitar lessons at 14 years old in Forest Hills. I was taking music lessons from a guitar store. I was carrying my guitar back home, and I was walking up the stairs of my building, and Tommy was coming down, and he saw me, and he said, "Do you play guitar?" And I said, "No, I just carry this around to impress the girls." So that's how we met, and we've been friends ever since. He said to me, "Come on up, why don't we jam?" And I said, "What's that?" And he explained jamming to me. We ended up forming a band. We were playing in Halsey Junior High School on a Friday night when there was another band playing there, and we really liked the lead singer. At the end of the night, we asked him to join our band, and it was Bob Rowland. So the three of us were in the Tiger Five. That was like 1964. We started 1965. We went through that. By 1966, Tommy met Johnny in high school and wanted to form a band with him and asked Robert and I to join the band because the Tiger Five was kind of breaking up at that point. So that's how we all got together.
So what high school did Tommy meet Johnny? Was it Forest Hills?
It was Forest Hills High School, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which we call Rock and Roll High School.
Yes, yes.
It's funny that back in the early 60s, it was like, there weren't street gangs in Forest Hills. Everybody had a band. So it was like, how's your band doing every time you met somebody? Because so many people were in bands in Forest Hills.
Yes, that was an iconic time. I mean, some really famous people came out of Queens. I know Paul Simon and quite a few people, so that's
Simon
interesting.
Garfunkel, went to my high school.
Oh, wow.
And Leslie West went to my high school. And Randy California. And by the way, I don't know if you know who Randy California is, but he was in the band Spirit. And Randy was also in the Tangerine Puppets for a short time.
Oh, wow. This is so interesting. So the Tiger Five was breaking up. Did you call it Tangerine Puppets or you formed another band between those two?
Yeah, we formed the Tangerine Puppets, but Johnny named it after a Donovan song that he liked. It was a Donovan song called the Tangerine Puppet.
Oh, wow. So we named the band after a song. That's cool.
Yes. Hmm.
Wow. I know because when you and Robert were talking, you had some wild stories about traveling around the city and trying to land some gigs. The 1960s, I mean, I was born in 1968, so I wouldn't remember it. My reference to traveling on subways nowadays are a lot different than traveling around on a subway back in the 1960s.
Oh yeah.
So you didn't really have a mode of transportation. It was all subway, right? So you were carrying
Yeah.
your equipment and traveling around and climbing up and down stairs with all your gear.
Yeah, it was pretty hairy. It was good that we had a lot of friends that would help us onto the subway with all our equipment. I remember one time we were going to play at a gig in Palisades Amusement Park, and I had no way of getting there. And this girl I knew, Susie, she asked her father if he would drive us. And he said yes. And there were five of us, the father and Susie, all in the car, and all of our equipment. And there was no room for anything. So we were hanging out the windows holding drums because there was just no room in the car.
That's hilarious. I know it must have
Uh,
looked really strange, right?
it did.
Yeah.
It
And also,
did.
the cars from the 1960s weren't as big. There was no SUVs driving around on the
No,
road. So,
no.
wow, that's really incredible. So what were your first gigs that you remember starting out as a Tangerine Puppets?
Well, we actually one of our first gigs was we became the house band for the living room and the phone booth, which were two big nightclubs in Manhattan. But we were playing in the afternoon for Sweet 16 parties. So we would play every Friday and I'm sorry, every Saturday and every Sunday at the living room or the phone booth, depending on which club had the Sweet 16 that day. So we did that for quite a while. We also played Forest Hills High School during school hours, which was really wild. They had a talent show and they asked us if we would play three songs in the talent show during school. And Forest Hills High School is so big. We had like my class had 1,200 students in it, but the auditorium was only large enough for like 400 students. So they would break the student body into three different schools: Forest, Park, and Hill. And so you would have a different talent show on it. Like one would have it on Monday, one would have it on Tuesday, and one would have it on Wednesday. So the first show we played three songs. One song when everybody walked in. Then in the middle of the show we played a song, and then when everybody walked out we played a song. Well, didn't work the way the teachers hoped it would because when everybody came in, all they did, they ran right up to the front of the stage. And then it took them a long time to find their seats. And then the show was running overtime. And at the end, we were playing and nobody would leave. See, the idea was we were supposed to play as people were leaving, but as we were playing, nobody would leave. So the next day, they cut the last song, and we only played two songs the last day. And then it still ran overtime because nobody would get in their seats at the beginning of the show. So they cut our first song. So we only ended up on the third day, only played one song. And the student body got restless and they started chanting, "We want the Tangerine Puppets." And they wouldn't leave until we came on and did another song. And our drummer was in junior high school, Scott Roberts, and this they wouldn't let him play in the talent show because he was in a different school. So we had to find a drummer, and we found I don't know if you know who Fred Smith is, but he used to be in a band called Television. And Fred ended up he was my guitar teacher actually, but he played he played drums also. So he played drums in the band for that show.
That's really incredible, though, when you think about, being a fan favorite at the high school.
Right. Oh yeah.
So they were already seeing a lot of your talent at that point. Wow, it's so interesting to think back to the early beginnings of that. So when you were playing out and getting these gigs, Sweet 16 parties, and, being a house band at some of these places, were they actually paying you, or was it just
Yes.
like an experience?
No, no. The living room and the phone booth paid us pretty well, for being 16 years old. So yeah, they paid us. But things like when we played Palisades Amusement Park, we didn't get paid. That was just promotion, playing with like one of the WMCA good guys, and on another day we would play with the somebody from ABC Radio. A funny story I'll tell you is that we played an opening back in the '60s. We didn't have McDonald's in New York, but we had Wetsons, and Wetsons copied McDonald's, just the exact same type of hamburger chain. My friend Ira, his uncle owned Wetsons. They must have had 15, 20 stores in New York City, and they were opening a new store in Flushing, and they asked us if we would play for the opening in the parking lot. One of the WMCA good guys on the WMCA radio was the MC of the show, and he was actually doing his radio show from the parking lot of Wetson's. So he introduces us, and we come running out. We start playing a song, and we didn't know it, but across the street from Wetson's was a girls' Catholic school. And they had just gotten out of school, and they all came to the show. And I guess because, this famous DJ introduced us, they thought we were some kind of big band or something. And they started screaming like we were the Beatles. And they attacked us, started pulling our hair and ripping our clothes off. The workers had to come out of Wetson's and carry all of our equipment inside because the mob was just getting crazy. They were acting like we were the Beatles. And that they locked us in the kitchen of Wetson's. And the girls were banging on the windows and banging on the doors. They had to call the police. It was like a riot. And all the girls were slipping papers under the doors with their phone numbers on it.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. That is so great. So, do you remember at the time what your reaction was? I mean, it must have been like not anticipated. I mean, you probably were a little shocked by this, right?
Very shocked. Actually, it was kind of nerve-wracking because these girls were out of control. You were fearing for your safety. I know a lot of bands that in the '60s, girls would just get crazy, and they would rip like chains off their neck and scratch their faces and pull their hair out of their head. It was kind of crazy back then.
Wow, I know. And they were throwing bras up on the stage and all
Yeah.
sorts of crazy things. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So, at that event at Watson's, do you remember the local media covering it, or it wasn't like covered? Like, was there a
No,
newspaper story, that these women
no.
went wild?
No, just uh, the DJ was uh, talking about it on his radio show. Like he couldn't believe what was going on.
Well, that's great advertisement. I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah.
totally perfect. Wow. Very cool. So at that time though, having Tangerine Puppets, I mean, were you playing covers, or you started to do your own music and your own, write your own songs and stuff?
We did a lot of Rolling Stones. We did songs by the Yardbirds. We did songs by them. A lot of English bands. Tommy started writing. We recorded one of his songs, but the kids back then didn't want to hear our originals. They wanted to hear us do covers. So we would put our own spin on the cover.
Yes, that's very
Yeah.
interesting that you say that, because it was just this morning that I was listening to 770 WABC. They were making a comment about Cousin Brucey, and they said, Cousin Brucey has been so successful because he plays what the audience wants to hear. And when they were talking about Cousin Brucey and his whole program, they mentioned that usually when you play the songs the fans want to hear, they kind of hang in there, you know? And
Right.
it's so true when you say that, that you were playing popular music, but you were playing British music, which was kind of really hot at the time.
Yes.
And it's the attraction. You were
Right.
actually playing something where maybe they couldn't go see it themselves, they
That's
couldn't
right.
leave New York to see this, British invasion or something.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you start playing songs that people aren't interested in, they turn off, and they just go walk away and do other things. If you play it on the radio, they'll switch the station on you. So you got to, give the people what they want.
Yes, it's very interesting because you said that it was really Tommy was the first one that started doing the writing.
Right.
And that's interesting. So he probably brought a lot of that into the Ramones.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because I know that Johnny participated in a lot of the writing too. Wasn't he one of the creative people in the Ramones?
I guess in the beginning they all kind of wrote together, and then and Tommy went off and he did some songs on his own, and Joey did some songs on his own. I don't remember John ever doing anything on his own though. Basically, it was a group effort when John was involved.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I told you this, but I actually taught John how to play guitar. I used to go up like once a week to his apartment in Forest Hills and um, try to teach him guitar. And it was the most frustrating thing I've ever done. John could only play downstrokes. He couldn't play upstrokes. Every time he tried to play an upstroke, he missed the strings on the guitar. So I told him, for now, just do downstrokes, until you can get those down. Turns out that that became his style, and he only played downstrokes when he was playing in the Ramones.
That's a very interesting story. I'm sure a lot of our
Yeah.
guitar players will find that very interesting. Yeah. I guess it's, especially playing an instrument, you really need to gravitate to something. And I think that sometimes it comes like you're a natural, and other times, especially with a lot of the guys that I've talked to that have played guitar, some of them really had to work at it. They had to really overcome a lot of difficulties, either in their forming bad habits or, just,
Absolutely.
yeah, like
Yeah.
literally having to play the song the way the song is played, like, state of the line kind of a thing. Wow. I had remembered last we talked, you had played at Cafe Wah.
Yes.
And a lot of New Yorkers will remember that reference, but that was a very big reference in New York City and club kind of bar atmosphere. So,
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
just give me a
Yeah.
little bit of a recap on the differences of these places: the living room, the phone booth, Cafe Wa, because I mean, I wasn't around at the time when you were playing them, but there had to be real structural differences. Like I remember going into the Cat Club versus going into the Limelight.
Right.
There had to be a lot of differences, but also the types of music that they would book, because some places, they wouldn't book certain genres and stuff. So,
Right.
what was your experience?
Well, the living room was more of a supper club at night, and so they had like standards and light jazz um, music that they booked. The phone booth, they were more of a rock venue, and they had. Um, in fact, I played there once with Billy Joel's band was playing there. He was in a band called the Hassles, and so they had a lot of the New York bands at the time playing there. But the Cafe Wa was kind of different. It was a venue like Bob Dylan would play. A lot of folk people would play, and then later on, they started opening it up like around 1966 um, in the afternoon, like Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon for teenagers, because at night they served alcohol. We used to go and they used to serve all kinds of different fruit juices, But they would have rock bands. A lot of the rock bands were bands that had, their own music, originals. And then, like us, we did some originals and we did some covers. There would be a number of bands playing in the course of the day. You would have one band play and they get off the stage, the next band would come on and play. And you would have about, 4 or 5 bands playing on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. But a lot of famous people played the Cafe Wha. It was owned by David Lee Roth's uncle, Manny Roth.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That is real trivia right
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Wow. Do
yeah.
you remember him?
Oh, sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. Because he used to, he used to book us quite a few times there. One day, when we finished our set at the Cafe Wa, we went around the corner to the Night Owl. Usually, the Night Owl doesn't have didn't have bands in the afternoon, but there was a band playing, so we went in and we sat down and watched the band. And it was the Love and Spoonful, and they were playing "Do You Believe in Magic?" And when they finished it, they played it again and then again. And it turned out they were there rehearsing because that night they were recording the record.
That is really awesome. That's a very recognizable song. Oh,
Right?
wow. The
Yeah.
minute that comes on, you could see people turn their heads like, wow. Yeah, that's a catchy one. It's interesting you mentioned Billy Joel earlier.
Yeah.
Did you really get to know these bands or you just kind of played after them or before them? Did you like establish any relationships with some of the other band members?
Yeah, well, we did because we all played a lot of the same places together. I didn't really know Billy Joel that well back then, just enough to say hello. That was about it. Back then, he was just another guy in a band playing a
Yes,
keyboard.
yes. He had not formed his persona,
Not
little
yet.
little bad boy and all of that. Yeah. Wow, it's
Right,
so
right,
interesting. Moving out and all of his classic hits. Yeah.
right,
Really
right.
incredible. What I find interesting is you're very young at the time that we're talking, talking about playing in high school, and you're still young. What was the
Sure.
impression that your family had? Because it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to play in the school, function. You were going out. I mean, your family was supporting you going out and playing in public places, or how was that?
Yeah. So I was going to tell you a story about my father, um, who sent a tractor trailer to my house to pick up all our equipment because we had a TV show that we were doing in Newark, New Jersey for Zachary. We had no way of getting there. So yeah, so he supported us like that. My parents thought it was a nice, it was like kids playing little league baseball. They support you and they don't expect you to become a major league ball player. They did support me. I was fortunate with that. The only thing he didn't let me do, he didn't let me grow my hair, and that was a constant battle in our house.
Oh, wow. So, what did
Yeah.
everyone in the band look like? Did everyone have long hair except for you? What was that like?
Well, John had a problem with his father also with his hair, and he would comb it one way when his father was around, and comb it another way when his father wasn't around. Tommy had his hair a little long as well, but nobody had like shoulder length hair or anything like that.
Yes. Well, this was the
Yeah.
sign of the times, though. There was a lot of
Yeah.
hair getting to start to be very wavy and shaggy and shoulder lengths. But it's
Yeah.
interesting when you talked about John doing his hair a certain way because I think he really created his hairstyle to be very
Yeah.
iconic. I mean, out of all the guys in the Ramones, he kind of looked, very particular.
Oh yeah.
Same as Marky. I think
Absolutely.
Marky also has a very particular hairstyle.
I think he stole his haircut from the Three Stooges. I'm not sure.
That's funny.
From
Yeah,
Mo.
it's
Yeah.
so interesting, though. So, getting back to your family, though,
Yeah.
because I find this
Yeah.
very interesting. You picked up the guitar fairly quick. Was anyone in your family musically oriented?
No, not at all. Mm-mm. I'm the first.
Wow, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. And did you
Yeah.
ever try to think that you can do some singing or?
Well, yeah, we sang it, in the band. Later on, in other bands, I did sing some leads, but in the Tangerine Puppets, I only sang a harmony.
Wow, it's so interesting. So the
And
Tangerine Puppets, how long were they in existence?
about a year and a half,
It seems
from
longer.
66, maybe 2 years, 67 to 68. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
66. I'm sorry, 66 to 68. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
after the Tangerine Puppets broke up, didn't you go to college at that point?
Yeah, that's why I broke up. I went to college, and when I was in college, I promoted the Beach Boys at my college, not as a college event, but as a private event. I actually found a student organization that would get me the field house at University of Oklahoma. All they wanted was 10% of the profits. They get the field house for free if they say they're doing a fundraiser. So I was able to bring the Beach Boys to the University of Oklahoma, and that started my concert promotion days.
That's
And
incredible. How did you make a contact with the Beach Boys? They weren't obviously local to New York City, right?
no, not at all. Well, I was in the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma. I called the record company and I said, "How do I book the Beach Boys?" And they gave me the Beach Boys agent's phone number. And I called them up and I said, "I have a 7,500 seat field house. I want to present the Beach Boys." And they said, "That's great. Can you do it on such and such a date?" And I said, "Yes." It turns out they were playing Chicago one night. And then 3 nights later, they were playing Dallas. And they wanted to have something between Chicago and Dallas to play. So University of Oklahoma was perfect for them. So they took the date.
It's interesting. We had just lost one of the Beach Boys not too long ago.
Yeah. Brian, yeah.
Did you form a relationship with any of them in
Yeah,
particular?
I was very close friends with Dennis Wilson.
Uh,
Dennis and I, Dennis would always leave my name at the on the guest list every time they played in the New York area, and we became very good friends. And he used to stay at my house. We had a lot of adventures together, which I've written about in my book. I met him right at the time of Charles Manson and his relationship with Charles Manson. So that was a very strange time.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
people had somehow stumbled through some conversations and crossed paths with Charles Manson. I had met a
yeah.
woman, it must be 15 years ago. It was in Massachusetts, actually, and we were all standing outside. And she had mentioned that he came through Salem, Massachusetts, and was talking with a lot of young girls, trying to
Huh.
recruit them. Yeah, very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. But she explained that she didn't want to go, but she felt that he was very charming and very charismatic. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that was his allure.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if you know it. Charles Manson and his whole family lived in Dennis's house in California, and he couldn't get him out. He actually went on tour with the Beach Boys, and then when he came back, he just rented another house and just left them there.
Yes. So I don't want to give away your whole book here, but
Oh no, 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 no.
that is very intriguing. A lot of musicians talk about Dennis Wilson, and he was very talented, and I'm sure a lot of fun to be with, because all of the
Yep.
interviews that people mention Dennis, they talk about how much fun he was,
Oh,
like
he
a
was
bit of a
great.
party
Yeah.
guy.
He was a very party guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very much
yeah.
so.
And
Yeah,
it's
we
also
had fun.
interesting because the Beach Boys at the time had a very unique sound. You had mentioned quite a few other bands that you ended up working with, but I
Hmm.
think that's also very interesting because the sound of the Beach Boys is very recognizable. Just like a couple of notes, and you're like, oh, that's the Beach Boys.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
Ramones
Yeah.
had that too. The
They
Ramones
did.
had
They
that
really
same,
did.
like, nobody sounds like
Yep.
them but the Ramones. So you had also mentioned to me Herman Hermits.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me about that because I'm not
Well,
familiar with.
I'll tell you a great story.
Okay.
When I was 16 years old, I used to go every weekend to Manny's Music Store. It was like the biggest music store in New York City.
and I would try out every guitar, and I didn't have money to buy the guitars, but I figured one day I would figure out which guitar I wanted and save up for it. So Henry, the salesman there, he used to let me try out any guitar I wanted to try. And I used to sit down, plug in my guitar into an amplifier, and just start playing. And this guy sits down next to me with a guitar and an amplifier, and he starts playing with me. And we're just playing some blues stuff. And all of a sudden, everybody's like forming a circle around us. And at the end, when we finished, we get this, big round of applause. So then I turned to the guy and I said to him, "Hi, my name's Rich." And he says, "Oh, my name's Lek. I'm the lead guitarist at Herman's Hermits." So I was saying, "Oh my God, I'm sitting here playing guitar with the lead guitarist of Herman's Hermits." And so I started talking to him. He said, "Yeah, why don't you, I have to get back to the hotel because we have a gig tonight." He says, "Why don't you come with me and we can talk on the way?" So I walked down to the hotel with him, and we tried to go in the front door, and there were too many girls hanging around, and they started screaming, and we had to run to the basement and go in the basement. And he took me up to the floor where Herman's Hermits was staying, and he introduced me to the band, and he gave me tickets to come to the show at night. And then 8 years later, I became their agent, which was very strange. When I met Gleck and I told him the stories, he remembered it, like it was yesterday. I ended up being their booking agent. I booked them for many, many years. I also produced the last record they ever recorded. I had me come over to England and do their record.
Wow.
It was
And what
great.
year was that?
That was 76 when I recorded them. Yeah,
That's amazing. Really, it's
1976.
amazing because now that you're talking, I'm starting to remember the conversation that we had with Robert. And it was when you got down to the college, you had this encounter, I think, with John Lennon, right?
And Paul McCartney.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you tell that story?
yeah.
I love that.
Well, it was 1968, and then it was May, and it was a bright sunny day, and I didn't feel like going to school, so I hopped on the subway, went down to Central Park, and I went to the Bethesda fountain. As I get there, I see two guys sitting on the fountain that looked very familiar, but I couldn't place them because it was just out of context. And then I realized, I said, "Nah, it couldn't be." And it said, "It's John Lennon and Paul McCartney." That's very strange. So I walked over there and I said, "John Lennon, Paul McCartney, what are you guys doing here?" And they said, "Hello, we've been sitting here for an hour and nobody's come over to talk to us. We thought we were losing our popularity in the United States." I said, "No, I think people just didn't recognize you. I had to look 3 times before I came over." So when I went over there, and I figured I'd have to have something to talk to them about. So I told them about this whole story about how I felt that they could make money with their film Magical Mystery Tour because they played it, I think it was twice on the BBC, never played it again. The movies wouldn't take it because it was too short. It was only an hour long, and TV didn't want it for some reason, and they just put it on the shelf. So I told them that they should take it to college campuses and show it on college campuses. And I said, I gave them a whole business plan of what they should do. And so Paul turned around to me and said, "When can you start?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I want to hire you to do this." And he wrote that phone number on the back of a card, gave it to me. It was Nat Weiss's phone number, who was their American representative, Brian Epstein's partner. I called him, and they hired me to book the college campuses and bring the film to the colleges and show it. And it was a fun time.
So, just for the audience sake, what year was that happening?
I met them in 1968. I didn't start until 69 after I left college.
So, bringing that tour, how many colleges were you able to bring that to?
Oh, I don't even remember. It was quite a few.
Was
Yeah,
it just all over the United States or was it just based on the
yeah,
East
all over the
Coast?
United States.
Oh,
No, all over the
wow.
United States.
That's
You
amazing.
know,
So, what was it
but
really like? Because you figure they had come here in New York when they make the break, 1965, I think.
64.
64. Okay. So when they
Yeah,
came here, that means they were only really had been here 4 years. What was it
3 years.
really
Yeah,
like seeing them up close?
it was surreal. I was a huge Beatles fan. My first concert ever was the Beatles at Carnegie Hall. I actually saw them every single time they played New York. I saw them at Carnegie Hall, Forest Hills Tennis Stadium twice, and then Shea Stadium twice. You have to like pinch yourself and make sure you're not dreaming. But I just kept talking because I didn't want to be like one of those fans that just started saying, "Oh, I'm such a big fan of yours and I love your music." And I didn't get into that. I just got into this whole thing of how they can make money promoting Magical Mystery Tour. And then when I left, it was like I couldn't believe it. He wanted to hire me. I was 18 years old.
That's amazing. So that the offer actually came from Paul.
Yes.
Wow, it's interesting. So was John more of the listener in that conversation or
Yeah, he was.
wow,
Yeah,
it's so
he was.
interesting. Yeah. It makes you
Yeah,
think, there's so many I never met them, but I mean, there's so many different theories, between John and Paul, who is more of a businessman or whatever. That's a prime example right there that Paul
yeah.
jumped right in there doing like a
Oh, yeah.
business approach with that. So that's like a very, number one, that's very lucky. But number two, I have to say that that's very brave because if you don't try something you don't know,
Yeah,
you would have been kicking yourself if you said, maybe it's not them.
right,
Right?
exactly.
Wow. So you really even made an impact for them, not just an
I
impact for
did.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
So, wow, that's incredible. So, after having that very early experience with them, did you ever have a face to face with them again later in life?
Yeah, I had a couple of them. John called me up one day. He wanted me to photograph I was a photographer at the time, and he wanted me to photograph his one-to-one festival at Madison Square Garden. And then after I photographed it, he invited me to the after party at Tavern on the Green. So I got to hang out with him at Tavern on the Green and take pictures of him and Yoko. That was pretty surreal as well.
That's an iconic place. I mean, anyone that remembers New
Oh
York
yeah.
City, I mean, that's been in so many movies and all of that. So,
Oh,
what year would
absolutely.
that have been, the one on one tour?
71, I believe. Yeah, or 72. Either 71 or 72.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was such a special
It must have
time.
been 72 because I think George Harrison did the Bangladesh. I photographed the Bangladesh concert in Madison Square Garden, so that must have been 71.
Wow, that's incredible. You're very
Yeah,
lucky, though.
yeah.
I mean, that's especially during that period of time because a few people I know, some of them, we probably have similar friends, but that go back to that early 70s experience. Some of them knew John, and they all describe him as a very approachable, even walking
Oh,
with
yeah,
Yoko in the
absolutely.
street. They had lived further downtown, and when they had moved up to the Dakota, people thought that they would just stay inside all the time, and that was not the issue. They were constantly out,
Yeah.
constantly
Oh,
mingling with
yeah.
people. They were really a New York couple. That's
Hmm.
really interesting. Wow. So
Oh,
you've
they're
been very
great.
lucky.
Yeah.
I've probably said
Oh,
that 10
yeah.
times in
Real
this
nice.
interview, but you've worked with other people, though. So tell me about
Yeah.
Tina Turner. I mean, she's an icon in itself.
It's kind of a strange story, though. I booked Tina Turner in a theater in Westchester, and it was supposed to be two shows. Both shows sold about a half a house, and we ended up combining the show to one show. So we had a full house. After the show, I went back to talk to her, knocked on the door. She yelled, "Come in." And I come in, and she's sitting on the at her desk with her feet up, and she's stark naked. And she says, "Don't mind me, I'm air drying."
Wow, that is a shocker,
A
huh?
little shocker, yeah.
Rock and roll.
Oh,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow. So was that in the
Yeah,
70s also?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I worked with Fairport Convention. I don't know if you know who they are. They
No,
were
I don't. Who were
an
they?
English, yeah, they're an English folk band. They were kind of big at the time. I was their road manager, and then I also was the road manager for Buzzy Linhart. You know Buzzy?
No, but the
Buzzy was
audience
pretty
might.
big in New York. Yeah, Buzzy was pretty big in New York. He played on one of Jimi Hendrix records. He wrote the song "Friends" that Bette Midler made famous,
Oh,
and
sure. That's a great one.
yeah, yeah. And I worked with Tommy James, and then I had my own talent agency called Somerset Talent, and we booked some of the biggest names in rock music from the 50s and 60s in the 70s, you know. So they were becoming rock and roll revival acts. And we do like, Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard and the Drifters and the Belmonts and Chubby Checker and Herman's Hermits and all those bands from the 50s and 60s that started touring again because there was a big need for a big demand rather for rock and roll revival acts. So what I used to do is we used to package these shows with like 8 bands or 8 acts, and they would play, like Madison Square Garden and those type of shows. It would just be one act after the other, and that's kind of how the old Murray the K shows used to be. The bands would come on and do 2 or 3 songs, and the next band would come on. I remember back in what was it, 1967. I went and saw Murray the K show, and he had the Who and Cream. First time in the U.S. playing that show, and they were playing back to back with each other on that stage, and there were like 7 other acts. It's just amazing. They came on and did 2 songs, and they were gone.
Yes. Well, that reminds me of most recently, Ozzy Osbourne had his last concert. And very
Yeah,
similar to that, where they had one band after another coming out and playing
right.
tribute. I went to a concert in Maryland that happens every year. It must be going on more than 20 years now, but it's called M3. And
Uh
it's
huh.
like a 3-day event. It starts out on a Friday night. It's all day, Saturday, all night Saturday, all day
Right.
Saturday. Like, and
Hmm.
it's those kind of things are great because you probably won't be able to see every band you want to. But if you're at an
Exactly.
event like that, you get to say, I saw them at least play 2 songs or 3 songs or whatever it is.
That's kind of like when I went to Woodstock, and I was there for 4 days, and I just saw like every band that ever was.
I went to
It's just
Woodstock
amazing.
also, but I was there in 1994, which was like a
Uh
mud
huh.
fest.
Yeah.
Yes, a mud fest. You were at the original Woodstock.
Original. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. What was your memories
It
from
was.
that?
Well, when we got there, we were looking for a ticket booth to buy our tickets, and we were just following the crowd up the road because you had to park like 3 miles away. We're walking and walking and looking for the ticket booth, and next thing we know, we're in the concert. We see the stage. I said, "How do we get in without paying for it?" And the way we found out was they turned it into a free concert because they couldn't put up all the fences in time. So we walked up to the front of the stage, parked ourselves, was probably about 15 feet from the stage, and we sat there for the whole concert the first day. The first night it was like pretty much all folk. And then fortunately I used to be in the Boy Scouts. Our Boy Scout camp was 2 miles from where Bethel is. So we went to stay at the Boy Scout camp in a tent, and then came back the next day and saw some of the best acts. I mean, you can't imagine bands like The Who and Janis Joplin and Creedence Clearwater and Jimi Hendrix and Sly and the Family Stone and Mountain. I mean, you just go on and on and on. The great bands that were there, Santana, but they did full sets. They didn't just do 3 songs. They played from noon until the next morning.
Yes.
So it was
Yeah.
great.
That's a very iconic concert. I
Oh yeah.
remember seeing, like, when you say what happened at Woodstock, other than the mud, the two takeaways for me was really Aerosmith They played,
Yeah.
and it was pouring rain and like almost lightning, and the crowd was
Oh,
electric. But also, Santana played that concert. So they
uh-huh.
must have done twice. They must have been at both of
Right.
them. But,
Uh-huh.
that's very believable because, Santana is Santana.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
amazing. Wow. So tell me, as we start to wind down the interview,
Hmm.
tell me how you got to wanting to write this book. What made you sit down and say this all has to be documented?
Facebook. A lot of my friends on Facebook are people who gravitated to me, were music people, and I would tell stories on Facebook about my life in the music business, and people loved my stories, and they encouraged me to put these stories in a book. But I was working. I was the president of Decision Support, which was a very busy IT consulting firm. I never had time to really sit down and write. But now I'm kind of semi-retired, and I have a little bit more time, so I decided to write it. And I had a lot of encouragement from a lot of friends who thought that I had a book in me.
Absolutely. Well, tell
Yeah,
everyone how, once the book is released, how they can find you and purchase the book and read all these
yeah.
great stories.
The book will be offered on my website, richardmartinadler.com. You'll be able to get it there. You can get it on Amazon, and you can get it like most probably wherever books are sold.
And how can they contact you on social media? Are you on Facebook, Instagram?
I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. Yes.
And what is your name or your title on that?
Richard Adler.
All right,
Yep.
great. Well, it has been a pleasure, Richard. You and I could talk forever, I know.
Yeah.
But
Once again,
I'm
thank you.
so glad that you have documented your stories. It's just so important. And they're humorous too. It's like pretty
Uh,
amazing how you've been able to wind your life into these pages. It's just incredible. I'm very proud of you. I am very
Thank you.
pleased to be a friend of yours. And I wish you all the success with this upcoming book.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you. Have a great
All
night.
right. You too. Bye
Thank
bye
you.
now.
Bye bye. You have been listening to Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Adele, professional psychic medium, Dream Central Station, LLC. My audio editor is Al Hemberger at the Loft Recording Studios in Bronxville, New York. This is WNEW 102.7 FM radio.